action. We have action inside the courtroom. The defense has just rested its case, and Donald Trump will not be called as a witness in his trial. All right. Defense rests. The jury has been dismissed until next Tuesday.
Unbelievable.
So enjoy your long Memorial weekend.
I can't understand that.
Well, I mean, they live in New York, right? Memorial weekend in New York City is considered one of the biggest getaway weekends of all time.
So great, make them do closing arguments tomorrow.
I totally agree with you.
And get them and force them to have a decision by Friday.
Yeah, and the point I'm driving at is, you think these people aren't going to watch the news? You think they're not going to log on and read something about this, that, or the other?
Or forget things they heard?
Or go out with friends or family members. And you know, friends and family members, the close ones know what they've been doing for the last month.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a secret. So off we go, and down we go to Jonathan Turley for his initial reaction. Where are we, Professor? Hello again.
Hello. I mean, the final day of testimony really highlighted many of the concerns that the defense team has, including some rulings from Judge Merchan, which frankly are disturbing. I said yesterday that I didn't quite understand the basis for some of his decisions. They seem to me manifestly wrong. Today, that was an even greater problem. For example, the judge allowed the prosecutor to cut off Costello when he was trying to explain the meaning of a statement. And when the defense came back and said, "You were cut off, what were you trying to say?" the judge sustained an objection that it was beyond the scope. That's crazy. I mean, he was trying to explain the meaning of what the prosecutors had just quoted. And to some extent, it makes you concerned. I remember there was a Louisiana judge that was notorious for turning to the defense and saying, "Is the defense ready to present its case?" And then he'd turn to the prosecutors and say, "Are we ready to present our case?" I mean, there's a line at which the judge's rulings become so disturbing that even some of the jurors may pick it up. So the concern for the defense now, as you just alluded, is that these people are going to go back to the world. You know, they're going to go back. They're not sequestered. They're going to go back to their neighborhoods. They're going to be subject to watching television, but they're also going to be talking with their neighbors and their friends. In New York, Donald Trump is widely disliked, and they're going to be going back to that environment. And the question for the defense is it going to make it more difficult for them to come back and be that holdout juror who says, "Gosh, I just don't even see where the crime is here"?
I'm the captain of dumb questions, so let me ask one. So the jurors, they themselves are allowed to go back to work today, right?
Yeah, they're not sequestered under any limitations. They're asked to avoid the news. But it's pretty hard to do that, particularly in New York, where you're going to be saturated by this trial.
My other dumb question is, so the issue of Brad Smith, the federal election commissioner who was willing to testify, and the judge said he cannot testify, and he was going to be somebody who could explain election law, and he did this long post on X instead. Does the jury know that he wasn't called? And if they don't, can the defense bring this up in their closing argument next Tuesday?
No, they're going to be under quite strong limitations. The jury probably does not know that they had this witness ready to testify on the election issues. The problem for the defense is that the judge curtailed his testimony so much that his testimony might actually reinforce the prosecutors, only in the sense that since he would not be able to explain that there's no election violation here, he would just sort of reaffirm that this is a core issue in the case. What Smith was going to say is that there is no election violation, but the judge wouldn't let him go into those areas. Now, many judges would have taken that position of, "I tell the jury what the law is." The problem is what the judge has done with the rest of the case. The reason this witness was needed is because this judge has allowed the jury to hear falsely that there were campaign violations, and there were not. And so I'm quite convinced that this jury thinks that there was a verified and established campaign violation committed and connected to Trump. That's just not the case.
Wow.
So what is most important about what Smith said today is that he had evidence to show that the theory doesn't even hold together because they wouldn't have had to report this, even if it was a campaign contribution, until after the election. So the whole premise of the prosecution is completely invalid.
So court is in recess until 2:15 Eastern Time. That's 4 hours from now. Both sides will work on the proposed jury charges before that time when the conference begins. Does the judge write up the jury charges over the next week, or is that done today, or when do we find that out?
I would be surprised if he wrote them up. He'll be hearing arguments. I was confused yesterday when he said, I want you to work together and come up with a redlined version of instructions. Sometimes you can do that, but I can't imagine a, quote, redlined version between these attorneys, because one side would just redline everything in the instruction, because there's a fundamental difference on how they view this case. I think the defense has the better argument here that says, look, there aren't any elements established in this case. It's not a credibility question, that nobody has connected Trump to how these payments were characterized on these business records. That's a fact. You know, the most that Michael Cohen has said is that he was aware that this was being done. I got
a little more information for you. Grace Taggart emails from the court. She says Merchant expects summations to take at least a day. He expects his instructions to last an hour at least. Merchant does not like to break up summations. He likes the jury to hear both at the same time. He then likes to give the jury charges, then the jury begin deliberations. Copy. Merchant says there is no way to do what he needs to be done in a cohesive manner this week. He considered all scheduling options, but the best thing they can do is adjourn until next Tuesday. At that time, they will hear the summations. The next day, they will hear the judge's jury charge, and deliberation should begin next Wednesday. So we got 8 days.
It's unbelievable to me.
That's not a speedy process,
no.
Professor, in any way.
No, it's not, and it works against the defense in my view. But here's the wacky aspect of this: after that long delay, after the government presented its case, after the defense presented its case, it's only in closing arguments that we expect the jury to actually hear what the theory is as to this second crime, what crime was being hidden with these false records. I have never seen a case in my entire career where that's the case. You still have legal experts who will be debating over the next few days what that theory is. That's why this judge has done a poor job, that he has created this farce which is unfolding in his courtroom. There should never be a case where we have to wait for closing arguments to figure out what the government's even suggesting about that second crime.
Jonathan Turley, thank you for all of that.
Yeah,
we will be
sir.
back to you as we have the defense has rested. President Trump left the courtroom moments ago. He did not make additional comments. We have his comments on his way in. You can see him there raising a hand up, but that is, you're not going to hear from him, at least not right now. The team comes back in at 2:15. Again, that was to talk to the judge about what the jury is going to be instructed to do, but that is not going to actually start until next week, which is pretty unbelievable to me. So we'll be on top of this. We have more great guests and analysis coming right up.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.